Thanks for tuning back into the Minutemen Initiative. Today we've got a special episode. It's one of our After Actions reviews. Again, we've done one of these in the past. We're going to continue to do them in the future. Basically, we're taking somebody that's got a real life experience and story that they want to share with us, and we're going to do an After Actions review on it. We're going to talk about what happened. They're going to tell their story, break down, ask questions on how it went, what they think they did well, what they think they could do better. And we just think it's really important to use these experiences and learn from them and potentially help you for possible future situations you could find yourself in. So today we're going to be talking to actually our younger brother, David Barlow. He's going to be talking about a situation where he was on a snow machining trip and had a situation where the environment kind of had it out for him, and there was avalanches and people that got hurt and all kinds of stuff. So it's a great episode. We're excited to have him on, and we hope you enjoy it. Good morning, guys. How are we doing?
I'm doing good.
David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. So we're going to be doing our After Actions review episode today, and today we're going to be sitting down with actually our brother, Mr. David Barlow. So congratulations to David for getting to tell us about your experiences. But David did have a pretty crazy experience when he was a little younger, and just like we've done in the past with After Action review episodes, which I guess is just one. I think
this is our second.
Yeah, our second only. But kind of the purpose of these is meeting people that have, stories of situations, experiences that have happened in their lives, and we sit down with them and let them talk about it and break it down. And hopefully you're able to learn from it. So I think that's one of the coolest things about experiences in general is sharing those experiences, talking through them. It can help you, in your personal experience, and then more importantly, help others and give them examples of what to do and maybe even what not to do in some cases. So, without further ado, if you just kind of want to start telling your side of the story, that'd be awesome. We can start talking about it.
Yeah, and I'll even segue off of what you just said. I think, especially for people that grow up here in Alaska or grow up somewhere where extreme things can happen, really the thing that prepared me for what we went through was our school that me and one of my buddies that was there with us went through as well. I think taking those opportunities to learn and be prepared is extremely vital and important because so I'll just say it this way. We for our school in 8th grade, we went through a CPR certification, me and my buddy. And
that was just provided by the school, or was it like an extracurricular?
I can't really remember. I was talking to my buddy. I won't mention any names, but, and he remembers us doing this too in 8th grade. I don't remember if it was like an extracurricular, like thing that we just chose to do, or like it was like potentially offered to us.
Yeah.
I just remember we did it. But I remember our whole class doing it, so I think it was just something that they offered.
Which is insanely awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not common to see in schools in general. So, because we actually went to different schools, even though we're siblings. You went to a different school than Steven and I did, so.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys did this or remember, but we went to, what's the hockey rink down in Soldana? It's like the
Sports Center?
Yeah,
the
Sports Center.
Sports Center.
Yeah, we did like a... and I did this with him too. We did like a snowmobile class. Did you guys ever do that down there?
No.
I remember them doing, teaching like CPR there as well and going through like avalanche protection and things like that, gear.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Weird. It was kind of like, just a preparation for maybe what we would go through years later.
Yeah.
But
so how old were you roughly when you went through all that?
So 8th grade at the school.
Okay.
So what is that? 13?
Probably.
Yeah, 13 or 14, I guess. That sounds right. And then the snowmobile, I say snowmobile because, I mean, Alaska, we would say snow machine or sled, but
Yeah.
I think snowmobile is more universally, people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But anyways, the snowmobile training, I want to say that was like before that.
And what did that entail? Like, what did the snow machine? I'm gonna be Alaskan.
Yeah.
And you guys can just get on board and figure out what the heck I'm talking about. But what did that entail? Like, you guys were covering avalanches there as well, or was it just like, hey, in case the snow machine rolls over, or
Yeah, like
it's just a bunch of stuff basically?
Right. It was multiple steps, multiple classes. It was going over like why you wear helmets, obviously.
Yeah.
That sort of training, but then also a little bit of like, if such things happen, a little bit of like statistics and
Okay.
training on that.
Some like response and stuff like that.
That's right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so it was like a number of things. I say all that, I guess, to segue that or conclude it. Don't take those things seriously, because I would have never imagined that I would have to use it. And then looking back, I'm grateful for those steps in my upbringing,
Yeah.
because I think this situation would have gone a lot differently without it.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
100%.
With that being said, let's get into it. So I remember my buddy's dad wanted to take us on a trip in the morning. So it was me, that friend that I went to school with, and then another friend from a separate school. And we all decided we were going to go on a snowmobile trip up to Hidden Lake,
Mm-hmm.
which is just before Cooper's Landing, I believe. Or heading from Soldotna, Kenai area towards
the
Cooper
peninsula.
Landing.
Yeah.
Yes.
North. Yeah.
Yep. I believe. Yeah, the little outskirt towards there, I think I believe is before Cooper's Landing. But anyhow, we left right around 5 a.m. to head that way. It's about a 45-minute drive, roughly, with fueling up and everything. So we got there around probably 6 a.m., warming up the sleds, offboarding, getting on. I think we ate a little something and then got going. So maybe our launch time was right around 7 a.m. roughly. And then
Meaning like offloading the sleds.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're at the
and
trailhead or whatever.
Yeah, everyone's ready to roll. We're heading in, kind of thing. And we're all stoked, obviously. About to go have a fun day.
What year time? Like, what time frame in the year was this roughly?
Yeah. So this was December 28th, 2017.
Okay.
Yep. And so we all head out. It was kind of funny though. One of the sleds broke down that morning. So one of our buddies had to he kind of went back and forth between my buddy's dad, mine, and my other friends' snow machines. So he was just like a double, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
So
he
you're
was,
running tandem.
So 4 bodies, 3 sleds.
yep. And 3 snowboards, because we're going to cross in there, get to a certain part that my friend's dad knew about, and then, build a hit or just snowboard around. And then his dad was just going to be our little taxi. That
Okay,
was the plan.
So
rolling
this
in.
was like a backcountry snowboarding kind of trip.
Yeah.
Then you were going to snow machine up, offload, like do some runs, and then get ferried back up to the top.
Yep.
Just the standard, like super fun,
Yeah.
Alaskan thing, man.
Yeah, it was going to be a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then we're rolling in. The sun's, coming up probably, it was coming up right around 9.
Yeah.
And that's when we snow machined in for about 2 hours, because you're crossing through trying to get to like the outskirts, I guess. And we actually crossed paths with 2 people out there.
Okay.
And we stopped by, turn off our snow machines. I think we nibbled on something, get some more food, and we chatted with these people. And it was a beautiful day, bluebird day, meaning there was no clouds. It was just it looked sick out there. It was just all white, blue sky, perfect weather.
What was the temperature? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember it being wicked cold. I think it was probably right around like that 27 degree range.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So it's not too warm to where things are melting, not too cold to where you're dying. I actually remember taking off my jacket when we were just riding. So it was definitely not like...
It's warmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we passed these two guys, and I remember my buddy's dad saying, hey, just so you guys know, if you guys are heading in, stay in the tree line. Just because this is, it's avalanche prone right now. And I'm sure being with my buddy's dad, I mean, he's been snow machining all of his life. So that was extremely helpful too. He understood the mountain really well. He grew up here.
He's been riding since he was like little too.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we just followed his lead because he understood, he understood that, I think that year had been snowing, freezing.
Yeah.
So there's multiple layers on the mountain.
You get all those, what do they call that? They call that like a freeze shelf or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I just know when there's...
Which is what makes it avalanche prone.
Right. When there's multiple layers, one falls and then it just brings the rest down over time. Anyhow, the guys were pretty nice, solid. And we pressed on. We left in front of them. And that's when it finally got like fun. Like for anyone that's been on like a snow machine trip or anything like that, that most likely the first little bit is just like you're just putting behind each other.
Yeah.
Just trying to getting
to where you're going.
Yeah.
You're in point A to point B mode.
Yeah. And you're just kind of like anxious, like ready to go. But we finally like crossed this little weird valley, and that's where we met them. And then we finally were like in the tree line, up in the powder, and the leader, the dad, was just like, dude, let it rip. Like just stay like kind of within this area, but like go have fun.
Yeah.
So we're just crossing up, and my buddy, likewise, he's been snowmobiling forever. So he's the son. So the dad's instructions might have been a little less
heated too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of went. He took advantage of the ability to just go wherever. So he kind of gets behind us, and at this time, my other friend is on the back of the dad's snow machine with him. And we're crossing through the tree line, just having a blast. The snow is like amazing. Anyways, we get to a point, and the dad looks back at me, and he's like, gets me the signal, like, let's head down the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And what I understood now is we were getting out of the tree line. So he was saying, let's cross down to the flats. We'll cross through the flats, and then when we get back to the tree line, we'll pop back up.
Okay.
So I crossed down with him. And I remember sitting at the bottom. I was like, I'm going to wait for my buddy.
Yeah.
Because shooting straight, I'm not that good of a snow machiner. Like, like I just not. Like, we had a little ranky-dank, I think it was a 1998 Yamaha at our house.
Yeah, the old VMAX, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that,
Is that what you're using out there?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was about to say, dude, there's no way.
No, they're...
The thing had such a short track on it. It was like 126 inches or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no. They gave me, a legit sled, which was probably too much for me to even handle. Like, I was having fun, but like I said...
What were you guys on? Do you remember?
A Polaris... is it an RMX? Does that sound right?
That
Can't
sounds
really
right.
remember. Anyways, I think it was
That's
like...
an RMK, right?
Or RMK. I
Yeah.
think that's right. RMK, maybe 600 or 700. So I can't really remember, honestly.
Oh, okay.
But it was fairly new. I believe they were like they were all like 2014, 2015. And this was 2017.
Yeah, those are new sleds, yeah.
Yeah. So they were sick and they were fun. But
Just
anyways,
ripping.
yeah, just having a blast. So we cruised down. I was saying that because I was waiting for my other buddy. Because I just, I was more just having fun being with him, watching him just tear that machine apart.
Yeah.
And as I was waiting for him, remember, we're on the flats. The dad is ahead of me with
a passenger.
With a passenger. And I hear something to my right. And I was like, what the heck is that? So I look up and I see an aftermath of a massive avalanche crossing down the mountain that we just, came down from.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa. For like for a second, I was like, is this thing going to hit me? Like,
because it was coming down.
Yeah. I can't remember. Whatever. That's not even worth it. This little movie that I watched, like The Rescuers or something. Like they enforce an avalanche on the other side to stop an avalanche. Do you guys remember that? And it like stops in the valley.
Okay.
All I was thinking is that, and I'm like, I'm in the valley and I'm about to get destroyed.
Oh, so is it coming at both sides?
No, just one side.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, dude, it looked huge. But okay, so and anyone that like something hits like that and that adrenaline like starts to run, time slows down.
Yeah.
Like crazy. So I remember thinking that like really fast, like, do I need to move? But then I kind of saw it settling ish. But then I look to the left and I see a snowmobile getting demolished.
Oh, really?
Like demolished. And
like by the avalanche.
Yes. Like flipping down, like tail front, just getting wrecked.
Yeah.
And at this point, the, what's that called? Like the cover of the engine?
The cowling.
Yeah. The cowling's off.
Oh, dang.
So all it is a snow machine. And from that distance too, I'm like,
that's your buddy.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking.
Yeah. Cause I was waiting for him and I was like, oh no. Like, did he not see, his dad's instruction to come down? Did he just pass through? So what's up?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. So at this point, I'm waving down the dad. And he turns around and I remember he always gave this thing. He's like, if something bad's going on, raise up an X and just slam an X with your two hands.
Nice. Get some hand and arm signals built in. I like it.
You got to have your hand and arm signals and you got to make sure you pass to the guy behind you.
You guys have a little SOP built? That's solid right there.
Dude, just following instruction. Like I said, the leader in front. So I'm slamming my arms together and like pointing and still
just throwing up the X, dude.
Yeah.
Des Bryant style.
Yes. Aggressively. So he like rips around and he's coming up to me and I remember him yelling. He goes, "Is that Jackson?" And
it happens every time.
That's all right.
And
Jackson's his son. Just to paint the picture a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember going, I just lifted up my hands like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he took my other buddy, grabs his jacket and chucks him off his snow machine. Like, rips him. And this dude, this avalanche is still like kind of like forming.
It hasn't fully settled.
Yeah, it's set. And he tears up this thing. Like full on dad mode.
Yeah.
It was pretty insane. Like just ripping up this thing, no worries. He's going after him. And I'm like, holy smoke. So I drive over to my other buddy that was just thrown face first into the snow and pick him up. Because at this point, it's full on. Like we're about to go dig. And he needs all the help he can get.
Yeah.
So I grab him and we come up after him. As we're coming up, I said his name, so who cares? Here comes Jackson out of the tree line, just ripping and tearing, having a just wonderful time.
Just oblivious to what just
totally
happened.
Oblivious. No, so me and my other buddy are like signaling him, like, we're going. And talking to him after, he could just tell by the snow line. So like when he was coming in, he could see, the clumps.
Yeah.
And he knew immediately, oh, this is an avalanche.
Yeah.
So he rips up too into gear. And when we get up there, so me and Jackson and my other buddy meet at with their dad, and he's already working with his shovel. I come to find that he saw a hand out of the snow.
Oh.
Just like maybe wrist or something.
Wow.
Out and hand moving.
Yeah.
He's already shoveling, just going for it.
Yep.
So we get down, we had a little pack on our back, and all of us were rocking beacons on our chest.
Oh, good.
Yep.
You want to explain what a beacon is really quick?
Yeah. So a beacon is just like, it's basically just like an electronic device that when turned on to like a fine mode, it searches out the nearest beacon that's on, and it speeds up or slows down and beep, or I guess a frequency.
Like ping, basically. Yeah.
And then that just helps you figure out where they are.
Yeah. Which, if you're in any kind of, just a quick like caveat, kind of a learning opportunity, but if you ever are in the backcountry where you have a lot of snow and there's potential of avalanches, you should 100% have one of these.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of like in the cross country ski, backcountry ski, snowboard, snow machine, sled community here. Like anything backcountry is just like a must have here.
Yeah.
Just have a beacon.
And another thing I would throw out there is this was kind of a newer, I guess, technology than even what we had at this point, or what the dad had told us to get. They have this little parachute, but
it's like
the thing they wear on
inflatable vest. Yeah.
Yeah. In an avalanche situation, it's supposed to keep your head upright on one hand, because if you can get buried upside down.
Yeah.
Which would be the worst.
Yeah.
And then also it's supposed to keep you at the, higher up.
Yeah.
As well.
Kind of float on top of the avalanche a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. It's literally like
it's like an inner tube basically that pops out of a backpack pretty much.
Yeah. Like a shoulder pad, or like
it's a lot like those inflatable life jackets.
Exactly.
It's just a little bit bigger, like in different material slightly, but yeah.
Yeah. So a beacon. And obviously rocking a pack with a shovel and a probe.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. So we slam up to the dad, start helping him. We all got our shovels attached, because they're like the little breakdown shovels.
Yeah.
They go into your pack.
Sweet.
Clip them in, going for it. We get to him, and he immediately tells us there's another guy.
So he was like right under the surface. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think his arm was bent a little bit, so his head was only like maybe a foot from the top.
Oh, so he was like sitting upright then?
Yep.
In the snow.
Yeah, okay. He was kind of at a little bit of an angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys uncovered his head, and he's just like, "There's another guy."
Yeah,
like,
he said, "There's another guy with me." And going back to the story, those were the two guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That you ran into.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of them.
Okay.
So we took obviously we got his helmet off, and that's when he told us. And then at this point, Jackson just rips straight into it. He knows what to do. He said everyone needs to get their beacon off. So I flip mine off. Dad flips, and then Buddy flips, and he turns his on, and it's just like beep 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 beep.
Yeah.
And we're like, "Do you have a beacon?" And he's like, "Yes." So we're like, "We got to get to that like right now. So where is it?" And luckily he had it on his chest, so we just kind of ripped that snow up. But I'm telling you, this snow, to put it in perspective, the dad, I'll get into where we're going, but the dad continued with him, the man that we first found, and he just had his boot in, and he couldn't rip his boot out of the snow. Like just one boot in the snow. He couldn't get it out.
That's how hard packed it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like full on concrete. And like shoveling into it, it's just like the stupidest shovel try ever. It's just like, and you're like barely getting out.
Getting like an inch of snow removed or something.
Yeah.
Dang.
Anyhow.
Just hard packed.
Yeah, hard packed. So we're like trying to rip these. It's just like clumps of snow kind of. So sometimes you get like a ball, which was nice. Turn his beacon off. Jackson rolls straight to it. Immediately goes in the right direction, which is solid. Starts beeping faster. Looking back, thankfully, he actually wasn't that far. I would say roughly about 10 to 15 yards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Away. But he was down. So the first guy, because obviously the mountain's, different in elevation.
Right.
He was like down a little bit.
Like farther down the mountain.
Farther down, but also it just had like a slope right there. Maybe like a little bit of a valley in the mountain.
Okay.
That he got kind of trapped in.
Yeah, like a little cave that he got swooped down into. So while he's going trying to find it, he tells me, he said, "Get your probe out." So I'm building the probe. And if anyone doesn't know what a probe is, it's basically like a tent. Like a tent pole. Exactly. If you
so collapsible, and you
with the
has a
little
wire
string in
inside
it.
of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Little bungee string.
Yeah, but each one clips in, obviously.
Yeah.
A tent doesn't do that, but you have to pull it out of the snow at some point. So it has to be
Yeah,
together.
that would be dumb.
It just separates. The worst. So I'm clipping it all together. He gets over. He's like, I think he's right here. He throws it down, and first try.
So just a little more explanation.
Yep.
The probe is going down, right?
That's right.
So roughly how long was your probe?
Yeah, so the probe we actually had was 375 centimeters, which is just over 12 feet long.
Okay.
Yeah. So he presses it in right when he has it, or right where he thinks the guy is, crosses it down. He almost pulls it back because he's going so far.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, I'm just going to continue through. And he gets down roughly about 2 to 3 feet of probe left. And that's when it just feels much different. Like there's nothing that really stops the probe from
just
just
going
like
through snow.
Yeah, it's just like pressing through. And then, and if something stops it, it's like you like break through it.
Yeah.
But this was like stopping and like sponging.
Mm.
It had like a little bit of like trampoline type feel to it.
Okay.
So he was like, that's him. And it didn't take a long time, but I remember significantly looking at him, and we were both tracking, like without saying it. Like this guy is wicked deep because the probe is like nearly gone.
Yeah.
So you're talking like 10 feet deep, roughly. Probably. If it's if it's 12 feet
yeah,
long,
9
you're
to
about
10.
2 feet above, so you're like sitting right around.
Yeah.
Dang.
So we he rips it out and we start shoveling. My other buddy's there too, and we're doing 2 at a time. Just go right there with each other. And at this time, just weird side information. I was doing dual enrollment through my school, so I was actually taking college classes during this time, even though I was in high school. I was 17 at the time, and for one of my college writing classes, I was writing a paper on avalanches.
Random, dude. Seriously?
Yeah. So
it's crazy how that stuff works.
Yeah, super weird. Or I guess I had just concluded it that last semester. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So I knew the statistics 'cause I had to write this paper for, deaths, the likelihood.
Mm-hmm.
What's weird though, I actually just found it just now. And I remember writing this too. There's a likelihood for feet under snow, and anything over, it says that anything over 10 feet is like, anything over 8 feet, the likelihood of death is like insane. But I don't.
So like super high percentage.
Very high.
Yeah.
I don't remember thinking that though, just at the time.
Yeah.
But I do remember thinking, I remembered like the 5 to 10 minutes, the 10 to 12 minutes, and the 12 to 15 minutes, and the percentage differences between the likelihood of
for
survival.
oxygen deprivation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we started a timer at that time when we started digging.
Nice to kind of keep track and like know that like we got to get after it. We got limited time.
Yeah, and it was helpful too because the dad just let us shovel, which I think was smart. He had just unburied the other guy.
Yeah.
And we had a little bit more, gumption in us.
Juice.
Yeah. Because this is I think, 16, 17, and 18 is our ages. And we were all going to the gym together too. So we were, this was our moment to, actually put that into a real life.
Yeah, put it to work.
Yeah. So we were going 2 at a time. And then when we got to a significant height, one of the person would catch the snow when we shoveled it up, catch it, rip it out. Because,
because you're just in a pit basically.
Yeah, you get to a point to where you shovel and you're getting snow back on you.
Were you guys basically just following that hole that was created? Like, is that what you guys were following down, or are you just kind of just digging?
We were just digging straight down.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were making it was probably, it started at like maybe 5 feet or roughly 4 feet in diameter, or like in width, I guess.
Yeah.
but obviously it kind of started to come in. Like,
Yeah.
Naturally.
it got to like maybe 3.5. But yeah, we just tried to go straight down. But so we continued on switching out, and the exact time, I wrote it down somewhere. I couldn't find it, but it was just over 13 minutes.
Okay.
But when you put that into perspective for finding the first guy,
Digging him out,
turning that off, finding him, I mean, we're probably over 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I would say. So not good, for sure. We get to him. We actually find his foot first.
Oh, man.
Yeah, which sucked.
Like his boot, basically?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we, that's when me and Jackson were down there, and we were just shoveling sideways across it because we didn't want to shovel into him.
Right.
So was he like laying down in there basically? Like,
Yeah.
was he like, he was horizontal?
He was like
then?
perfectly flat.
Okay.
Yeah. So we shoveled like across the snowbank, or like the avalanche, I guess, snow, and we're able to pull him out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. And then
So you kind of made like a little cavity almost, and then just extracted him out of that.
yeah, extracted him out of that, and actually threw his feet back down and took his helmet off
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to hear for any sign of life.
Yeah.
Couldn't find a heartbeat, so we immediately started CPR. And at this point, we actually took the helmet off, and my other buddy, he kind of like, and this is something that at first I didn't really think about, but the more I think about it now, I think it has a good message to it. But when he saw it, he physically couldn't handle it. And I think everyone knows that everyone handles trauma in a different way.
Yep.
But he immediately went into action. He said, because we had no signal here. And that was like a problem for a while. The dad was trying to get signal, but still be near.
Mm-hmm.
So he immediately said, yo, I'm going to go ruck up this mountain and try to go get signal. Because me and him were there for CPR. I guess knowing himself that he couldn't really handle it. I mean, when we took off the helmet to see his face and that type of thing.
This is the buddy or this is the dad?
This is the buddy.
Okay.
And I think that's a solid message, just to do what you can do.
Yeah, I like that. 100%. I mean, it's better because unfortunately a lot of people allow themselves to kind of sink into their thoughts and kind of clam up, freeze up, and become useless. And there's no, like, you can't be useless if you have the people you have. And if you can't deal with something specifically, then find another job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which is what he did well, I think. He immediately, went into action. I'm going to go do what I can, go get signal. I'm going to go up this mountain. He checked on us, do I need you? And at that point, we really didn't. But yeah, so I'll just continue. So at this point, me and Jackson are down in the pit. He was doing mouth to mouth, and I was doing compressions. And I remember the first time he did mouth to mouth, the guy puked.
Yeah.
And kind of spit up, like directly into his mouth, just to be straight up.
Yeah.
And he moved, and it was so much that it went onto my jacket as I'm over him.
Who moved?
Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
Like getting out of there.
Yeah, he got out. And it was pretty impressive from like a buddy type of level to see. I mean, he just spit it out and went back to it. So, I mean, that was pretty legit.
So let me back up just a second here. So you guys got him out.
Mm-hmm.
You removed him.
He's out of the hole then?
Yep.
Or you're still down.
No, we're down in the hole.
Okay. So then you pull the helmet off.
Yep.
Trying to find breathing and or pulse.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see that there's none. Could you see any did he look blue or anything like that?
Yeah,
okay.
His face was like purple.
Yeah. Which is a sign of oxygen deprivation.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much right away you're like compressions.
Yep.
And then so you initiated compressions and just rocking 30 compressions and then paused for him to do 2 breaths.
That's right.
And then back into 30. So you're
Yep.
rocking 32.
Yep, 32.
Cool. And then he did a breath and then got basically
out.
Destroyed. Spit
fluids.
straight back in for that too.
Yeah.
And we were just going. At this point, and I don't really remember this because we were down in the pit, the dad had told my other friend, I'm going to get help. So at this point too, 3 other people randomly showed up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't really know how they even got there. I mean, I was down in a pit.
Yeah.
But they showed up, and I think it was right around like the 20 to 30 minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, on your next compressions, do the 2, and then we're going to rip him out of here so then we can start switching with you guys. Because we just wanted to continue the CPR until help came, basically. But they couldn't really get in, and we would just be in the way. So we ripped him out. We had a little...
Yeah, because you guys are probably just smashed down in the bottom of a tiny little hole.
Tiny little hole. Just for me and him. Like, Jackson's doing weird things to, like, get to give him breath. And we were getting kind of tired.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's exhausting.
Dude, it wears you
I
out.
was about to say,
man.
anyone who's done CPR and for whatever reason, like when you're doing it too, like you're already got like kind of that adrenaline going. So like I feel like you tire out like it's thorough, but you tire out faster for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Because you're just like,
But it's like you ignore it.
yeah.
You're like, your heart is racing, you're breathing hard, but you're just like, I got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that all 3 of us have done CPR.
Yeah.
So, in real life.
Yeah, and you guys might be able to speak to this because I don't really know. I mean, I knew, like, whenever I did the CPR certification, they would say, what is it, 2 inches
Yeah.
down in, and you'll most likely. I felt the ribs crack.
Yeah. So, a lot of people say it's ribs breaking, and it
can be
it's,
that.
it
but
can
it's
be,
more
but
than
it's
likely.
most of the time it's your cartilage cracking around where your ribs meet your sternum.
Okay.
So, but you'll feel that usually on the first 2 compressions.
Yep.
You'll feel that, and then it'll kind of.
Yeah, it was right away.
Sorry for the nasty sound effect, but
I mean, that's what it was.
What it is.
Yeah. So that was also.
But then it was easier probably after that. Yeah.
And that's another thing back to it. It's crazy. My brain went straight back to that CPR certification.
Yep.
Like the second I felt it, I was like, that's normal. Let's roll. Kind of thing.
It like actually feels like that depth that you get on the CPR dummies. That's what I was just talking about in our last podcast. Like, it's weird, crazy how much something as simple as that, like when you go take a CPR first aid training, how simple that those weird dummies are that you do CPR on, how much that actually like translates over to like when you do it for real.
Yeah.
Like how much it feels the same.
Pressure and feeling was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Doing it.
Like everything, when they teach you where to like to feel and get in there, everything was like, it just felt, I could feel that whole thing.
Sick.
My mind went straight back to it.
Did you guys remove clothing, or did you guys just kind of rock it with the clothing that was on?
Removed zipper, and then he just had like a little
like a base layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very thin.
Nice.
So I just rocked it with that.
Yeah.
Because could.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you could feel pretty much everything normal.
Yeah.
Right there.
And it's not like you had an AED or anything like that to hook
Yeah.
up, so there's no reason to.
So you left him clothed pretty much because obviously you're worried about exposure too because you're out in the middle of the snow, out in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah. Yeah, I think when we zipped down, we left the bottom of it. I just kind of.
So how far?
Separated.
Well, actually, I'll ask those questions in a second. So, anyways, you can continue. Yeah.
Sweet.
So you tried to pull him up out of the pit.
Yeah, we got him out of there. It was flat ground up there. It was flat in the pit too.
How'd you guys do that? Because I'm just imagining a hole, like a hole that you're having to get. Like, I mean, this guy. I mean, you haven't said how big he was, but from what I know, he was a
big boy.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah, probably like 250.
Yeah,
if not more.
It's thick.
Yeah. Well, remember how I said when we were throwing snow out, someone had to catch it and pull it?
Yeah.
Over time, that kind of made like a ramp.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Just
kind of happy accident.
Yeah, for sure. That was not what we were really thinking about. It's weird, and maybe I was wrong in like thinking this way, but I never like surpassed the initial response. So like when we were digging, my mind wasn't on CPR. And when CPR began, my mind wasn't on getting him out. Like it was just like these things came after, but like I don't remember.
You're
like
focused on the task at hand.
You're right. Like
Yeah.
it was immediately just like we just gotta find him. And I was like, I don't know. And maybe if that would happen again, like obviously you would be able to, like you would understand maybe a little bit more of the process.
No, I think it's good though that you just kind of focus on the task at hand, because like you don't want to get too ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you don't even know. You could have dug all the way down, not found anything. You could have been like hitting something random,
Yeah.
which would have been like just
Horrible.
terrible. But yeah, man.
So anyways, you guys get him pulled up to the top on your little
Pull up to the top.
happy accident ramp that you
Yep.
made.
Dad's gone.
How many people did it take to get him pulled out of there?
Really just 3.
So
So
it was
we had-
basically you, Jackson, and then a rando that showed up.
Yep. I think there was 3 total. Two dudes, one older guy, one younger guy, and I believe one woman. She was actually tending to.
So older, younger, and a woman.
Yep. And she was tending to the first guy.
Okay, I was going to ask where he was. So
Yeah. When he was pulled out by Rob.
We're dropping names, but that's all right.
Oh,
That's the dad.
yep. He was. Dude, it's difficult, dude.
I know.
It is. It's hard.
I always mess it up.
He was. He left and went and just sat down on the hill, which is understandable. We were moving, and he was probably very shook up. I mean, for all he knew, he was stuck for. I mean, if we weren't there, that guy was dead.
yeah,
Um,
he couldn't move a thing when he was in there.
no, he could move his little hand that was out,
Yeah,
frailing. But no, like I said, just his boot.
So it was compacted all the way around him then. Like every,
Oh yeah,
like even his arms that were like separated were probably compacted around then.
yeah, he was donezo.
Yep.
But but yeah, so when he got out, he was, and then the young lady went over and she, was talking to him,
Okay.
checking up on him.
yeah,
So everyone was pretty much doing something, which was legit. Like I said, Dad left to go try to get signal too. My other buddy is rocking up the mountain trying to get signal on his phone. Lady is tending to first victim, and then the 2 other are up saying, "You got like." I think they could visually see us tiring out,
yeah.
most likely. So like, hey, like I said, this next one, let's rip him out of there, and then we'll, go back.
Rotate out.
Yeah, rotate out. So we got him out and started rotating. Jackson though kept on to mouth, the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 other guys both were CPR certified, so we were just continued on. And
Oh, they knew about CPR as well.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
So you had good quality compressions all the way around, like on your rotations.
Yep.
Nice.
And it was about, so at this point my other buddy came down the hill. He said, I can't get service anywhere, like we're just, I don't know. He saw the handlebars of the snow machine
Mm-hmm.
somehow, so he just started working on that. Like,
Digging out the sled.
Yeah, we got to get this thing sooner or later, I guess, was his perspective,
Yeah.
which solid. We had more than enough people. We had 3 people rotating.
Yeah.
How many cycles of CPR do you guys think you were, or compressions do you think you guys did on each shift?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay. Just
Maybe-
until you got tired, pretty much.
Yeah. Which I think it, like the first guy, I think it like kind of changed. Like the first
Yeah.
2 times it was like maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And then we got down to like switching every 3 to 6,
Mm-hmm.
just because we're all kind of
Tired at that point.
tired and the adrenaline's wearing off. Like I hate to say that because it's still like you're still in it and working. But at this point it's like shooting straight, I was getting a little discouraged
Yeah.
because we're like, We're like 2 hours in. And I'm thinking, like, we're not stopping, but this does not look good.
Yeah.
So, emotionally, physically, all of the above, tired.
Kind of demoralized a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Finally, probably around the 2 hour 15 to 30 mark, we hear a helicopter in the distance. And we're thinking just like, finally. Backstory, what that was is the dad made it back to the car.
Okay.
So ripped all the way there, which, shooting straight. It took us 2 hours before we even met the dudes in the beginning, and then we sledded for a while. He must have been flying.
Dude, yeah.
To get back. Who knows where the helicopter came from? I don't. We're in Cooper's Landing.
Probably
Kenai? Or Soldotna over there next
Anchorage.
to...
No, it could have been Cooper Landing. It could have been Seward. Could have been Anchorage. Could have been Kenai. Honestly, it could have been
whatever.
It would have been wherever the most ready to go one was. Was it Life Med? Do you remember who it was? Or was it Troopers?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I should be able to find it here. But
that doesn't matter right now.
We'll
figure it out later.
Anyhow, so yeah, about 2.5 hours, the helicopter starts busting in here, and we just continue going. And they show up. Their guys rip out of there all this gear, and at this point, they're just kind of like not really using us, like partially using us, partially not. But they pop out all their gear, and they have like and I don't really know all this stuff, so maybe you guys will be able to help me out low key. But they basically threw a tube down his throat for like compressions that way with a little.
There's like a OPA with a
It was
BVM.
intubated. Yeah. So they just gave him oxygen. Basically, they were manually.
And they actually had me do that, so I was doing the squeezes.
Oh, you're nice.
Yep. And
They give you like in some instruction before. They're just like, here you
yeah,
go.
they gave me. They walked me through it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, see what he's doing. This is the time. Basically, I think I actually have a video of that, and they were doing compressions at this point. Another guy was getting some other instrument out, which could have been I don't know what it was, honestly. They're getting something out and hooking that stuff up to him.
They're probably getting some sort of an AED, I imagine.
Yeah.
Just to see, because it'll monitor like any activity going on for the patient. So it does more than just like, shocks the heart back into rhythm. It will monitor anything and everything that's going on. So
Okay.
They probably it's usually just safe practice. Even if the person doesn't need it, it's not a bad idea to hook it up. So,
Right.
but,
And I do know this. It must have took them a while. I'm guessing the dad made it back in roughly an hour to an hour 20. I'm guessing, because shortly after when this all happened, I'll just continue. But shortly after, when the helicopter left, he showed up again.
okay.
So
yeah, he probably called and started heading back up, and then they got there before he made it back. But
right.
he probably saw it going overhead though, so it was probably like good.
Yep. So they did what they did, and then they had all of us help get him onto the stretcher.
Yeah.
And then we all picked up the stretcher, got him into the helicopter, and they went immediately, I believe, to Anchorage.
Probably. Yeah, because it's the only hospital that's worth anything, unfortunately, up here in Alaska. So,
right.
Our hospital does all right, but
yeah,
for the most part, anything that gets pretty intense goes straight to Anchorage anyway. So,
and I believe that they took, I could be wrong, but when I'm trying to remember the details, it makes no sense otherwise, but I believe they took victim number 1 with them in the helicopter as well.
Yeah, I would imagine they did.
I'm pretty sure that happened, because I don't think he was there after that. So that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm sure they did, because they probably had to check for internal bleeding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would probably, if I was there, like if I was making the decision on the flight, I'd probably be like, let's take this guy too, just in case, you know, because if something else happened while you guys were on the way back with him or something, that would be random. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. So they took him. My other buddy got the snowmobile out, and this was actually the one that I didn't see. We never found the other one. The one that I saw just getting demolished. We never found the one. And the only reason I know that is because the one that we found was actually in pretty good tact.
oh wow,
Yeah.
were you able to start it and stuff?
Yep. We
Really?
drove. My buddy, remember how he was doubling up? He
Yep.
drove it out.
Oh wow,
So that's kind of why I mentioned that, because
kind of perfect.
yeah, that weirdly worked out too.
Yeah.
And we got that snowmobile back to the family. So
Oh cool.
yeah. So after the helicopter dipped out, we really just kind of gathered ourselves and left.
So did the EMTs or whoever was flying with the helicopter, I don't know,
It was Life Med.
it was Life Med?
Yep.
So what do they got? They got EMTs,
Paramedics.
paramedics.
Yeah.
Did they
Flight medics.
did they basically say, yeah, he's done, or was that something you guys found out later? Or
No, they didn't give us any word like on site.
okay.
But the dad found out later that night that he was declared dead.
Mm.
Yeah.
And any cause of death or anything?
Yes. What dad told us was that the cause of death was impact
Mm.
on chest. So that goes back to what I said about I couldn't really remember, for some odd reason, the seriousness when it came to how far you were buried down.
Yeah.
And that really points back to that little life jacket thing again.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big deal. And I'm not going to lie, the time was a big deal too, but being higher up is quicker time.
Yep.
So, and obviously less impact. So those little things matter a lot. The gear matters a ton. Thankfully, he had a beacon.
Right.
I mean, shooting straight. Where they got hit, I mean, I'm sure they might have found him and probably would have looked extremely hard, but who knows?
Yeah.
No, I know a lot of those avalanche casualties that happen. Sometimes they don't find them till the following year when the snow melts off more.
Right.
Yeah.
They just
And it's just a body recovery, obviously, at that point, which,
It's literally a needle in a haystack.
yeah.
Yeah. But to go back, I was able to, in one of the transitions, I was able to go check on victim one.
Uh-huh.
Sitting on and I was just kind of talking to him, asking him how he was doing, and he was clearly shooken up,
Yeah.
like just kind of looking straight forward. He never really looked at me. He did say thank you to us. I remember that because that it's just something you remember.
Yeah.
But something he did say that I'll never forget is he kind of walked me through it. So he was up the mountain a ways, and he pointed me where it was, and it was, anyone knows when you're looking at a mountain that's a wide out, it's really hard to tell like distance,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But it was up a ways. If I were to guess, maybe like 300 feet, roughly, maybe.
Yeah.
He said he was actually sitting like sideways on his sled. Like, you know how you both feet are on one railing,
Yeah.
looking down the mountain.
Wow.
And he heard his buddy yelling, snowmobiling down the mountain.
Yeah.
And he said that's the last thing I remember. And then it felt like I got hit by a truck.
Dang.
Yeah.
So he
Don't
was
try
just,
to outrun the avalanche, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. The avalanche caught the guy snow machining down. And then when the guy said he got hit, it felt like a semi hit him.
yeah,
So powerful. Very powerful.
for sure. And maybe just a little lesson of situational awareness too. Like maybe keep your eyes on the up on the mountain too a little more.
Yep.
I mean, it's fun to look down, but when you're talking about avalanches and stuff, you got to pay attention. That's crazy.
Yeah, and this is kind of more speculating, just understanding how it played out.
Yeah.
But to hear that he was snowmobiling down and then where he was and where his sled was directly down from him, skis facing the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he went airborne. So he got nervous and he actually dismounted sled.
Oh, okay.
But he dismounted down, and I think the snow just covered him.
Yeah.
So it was never like him going through the avalanche. It was just him immediately buried.
Right.
Because sled was caught up and buried like this. Or I guess to explain, skis facing bottom.
Like towards
and everything
the base of the
upright.
mountain.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was about, my buddy found it roughly, 30 yards down.
From where you found victim 2.
Yeah, exactly. And he was flat. So that's just really just me speculating. I have no idea. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But just hearing what victim 1 said about victim 2 and then how that played out, that's kind of what we gathered.
Mm.
But, and I have nothing really to say about that other than ride it out, I guess, is really all I could say. But who knows what would have happened. So, and then, by the grace of God, victim 1 was close to the top.
Yeah.
And he lives another day.
Have you heard anything more from him?
Nope.
Never heard from him again, huh?
No.
No idea who he was or anything?
Nope. Nope.
Crazy.
I should I don't want to share too much. One thing, victim 2 was not married.
Okay.
No family other than obviously parents. And
yeah.
And I believe they reached out to dad and just thanked him.
Yeah.
Because I've never been through that, talking from that perspective.
Yeah.
But I'm sure just understanding and also having him recovered
100%
was meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what they communicated to him.
You would always question, like, is there some way that he's out there somewhere?
Right.
I think it's a lot better to have, as morbid as it sounds, I think it's a lot better to have clear, defined, like, explanation of what happened rather than always kind of wondering. And you would actually know. I mean, I think it would be so much worse. Just looking at it from, like, loss that I've experienced in my military career.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better to know, because you would know, like, if the body wasn't recovered, you would know, like, he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the logical part of your brain would know, but I think you would have that hope side of that irrational hope of, like, maybe he's out there somewhere, Yeah. You'd always question, like, what happened. So yeah, I think it's 100% awesome. Obviously, and you guys treated it, which is really good to hear, because it's a common mistake that, people doing CPR kind of make, unfortunately, but you guys never assumed he was dead. You guys stayed on CPR the whole time. And you said that it got hard and kind of demoralizing and discouraging. It's like, man, this has been hours now. But you guys did the right thing. I mean, you always assume they have a chance,
Yeah.
So I guess kind of backing up a second, the dad hauled just basically like light speed out of there, it sounds like, to get back to cell service was his plan, right?
Mm.
So he called for help.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how long it took him to get back to the trailhead?
Yeah. I mean, I never talked to him about it, but just like doing the math, I'm guessing right around an hour and a half, because I was, as I mentioned, he showed up not that long after the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had maybe just left or were about to leave, which that process was probably another 30 minutes, I would say. Around there, 15, 30 minutes. And then he showed up pretty much right when they were leaving. So he had to come back, obviously. And I think he went just as fast.
Yeah.
So maybe like in totality, 3 hours, 3 hour trip there and back. So maybe about an hour and a half, which would make sense because he was putting around with us to get there, and it took us about 2 hours.
Yeah. But then he just knew exactly where to go. And
He knew
just ripped it
exactly where to
straight back.
go. He wasn't worried about anyone. Like I mentioned before, very skilled driver.
Yeah.
He just got there and got back.
Cool. When the helicopter came, did they just kind of land? Were they just like, we got this figured out? Or did you guys have to kind of find a spot for them? Or did they say, I mean, I guess they couldn't talk to you. So
Yeah. So
they kind of circle around for a second and try to figure it out? Or
no. So they were doing, I think someone else was doing compressions at that time, and we were just waving them down. And I think they spotted us from afar. They were kind of, because they were moving kind of slow through the mountain range, I guess,
Yeah.
the valleys. And then at one point, it was like nose down, pressing. So I think that's when the flyer initially saw us,
Yeah.
and then just pressed. And he came down super smooth, dropped, and it was like before they were even touching, doors were open, people were flying out,
Yeah.
like super legit.
And they came over with all their gear and
Yep. They said they didn't take over either. Like when we were going, I think they asked.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's something that's where a lot of people have questions on, like, what do I do when professional help gets there?
Keep going.
So yes, yeah, okay, good. So
Just
you want to talk about that specifically, like?
Yeah. So the guy was doing compressions, and they were coming up. They were super calm, clearly, because they're professionals.
That's what they do. Yep.
They said, continue on. So they just told the guy doing compressions and my buddy doing mouth to mouth, continue doing what you're doing. Let us get set up, and then we'll let you know how we'll do this. So they just let him keep going. And then they just communicated to him. Next compression set, 2 breaths. While the breaths are happening, you're going to switch out. And then when you're done, you move out of the way, because I'm going to be working here. And that's when they did that. So their guy switched to compression, while the breaths were happening.
The paramedic.
Yeah, the paramedic.
Yep.
He was doing compression. And then the other guy immediately inserted
The tube.
down the throat. And then he started the breaths. And then he looked at me and he said, you see what I'm doing? He walked me through it, told me what to do, how to do it, gave it to me. And then he got out another device. And I was telling him, I don't know what that was, but.
Okay. Did they stick anything to his chest?
Yeah, like little stickies.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
you're
an
right.
AED.
That's what that was. Which they don't use AEDs, but it's same
Yeah.
thing. They have their own version of that that's a little bit more professional.
Okay. Yeah.
AEDs are for the, you know what an
layman.
AED is, obviously.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. So AEDs will tell you, the steps. Theirs don't do that. Theirs are, record vitals and
Yeah.
stuff, but they know what to do. So,
Yeah.
so then did they pack them up pretty quickly after that?
Yeah, they were just getting ready. The other guy was already busting move on the stretcher, getting that thing set up, something with the helicopter, because there's 3 dudes.
Yeah.
And they were all just, it was smooth.
Did you help carry, or did they?
Yep.
Okay.
So we,
Use like a sheet or something and put a sheet under them, just pick them up that way or something.
yeah.
Or was it a rigid?
No,
litter?
it was like we had to slide a little, it looked like a tarp type thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got him on there, lifted up the tarp onto the stretcher.
Pulled the tarp out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Grabbed stretcher. Got him in.
Cool.
And they kept working on him pretty much the whole time.
Yep.
And they instructed us on every single bit. We were just kind of like little.
You're getting delegated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just the pieces.
The ponds.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they went and grabbed patient 1, or you don't remember that?
Dude, for some odd reason, I can't remember that. I don't know if like patient 1 kind of got involved at that point. I think they asked maybe Dad, because I remember him being there. Is there anyone else out here?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, just 2. He said 2. Yeah, he was buried, kind of thing.
Oh, so Rob did make it back then
Yeah.
before
he
they
was-
flew.
Yeah, he was back,
Okay.
which I'm trying to figure out how the heck that worked. But maybe, I don't know. I should have called Dad up, but maybe he got signal before parking lot, which that would clearly make way more sense. Anyhow, however it worked, he was back, and I believe he told him, we unburied that guy, because they were like, oh, well, hey, come with us, type of thing.
Yeah,
I believe that's kind of how it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool. So at that point, they flew away.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of left you guys. Later, guys.
Yeah,
and took off.
Yeah, I remember them being like super positive, like good work.
Yeah.
You guys have done really good. You good? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah. And they're like, sweet. And they pressed on.
Yep. And then so you said you kind of gathered yourselves. What was that like? What was the aftermath after, obviously the responsibility's been taken.
Mm-hmm.
So that load's kind of gone.
Yep.
So I'm assuming there was like a letdown of like, all right, it's just us now.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that was like?
I remember being wicked cold.
Okay. Yeah.
And the process behind that is when I was shoveling, I got so hot.
Yeah.
And like, I remember one time almost passing out. Like we were just winded. So I took off everything, or my jacket. I didn't take off my shirt. But then when we're doing CPR, didn't think about it. We're down there for 30 minutes and I'm still hot, obviously.
Yeah.
But just like a little later, I start to put things back on. But at that point, my sweat had like frozen.
Yeah.
And now the jacket's just meaningless, basically. It saves me from wind.
Yeah.
But I'm cold.
Mm-hmm.
My hair was just crazy, obviously, because you just have that beanie on and that's off, and
that sweaty beanie hair, dude.
Yeah, sweaty beanie hair. Yeah, dude, I remember just kind of like I said earlier about my other friend that climbed up the mountain. Everyone handles stress a lot differently. So there was just like a lot of the older guy that showed up. He was like bawling.
Huh.
Yeah. And
just
he's
the one of the randos.
Just one of the randos. And he was like, I'm selling my snow machine. I'm never snow machining again.
Really?
Yeah. Like it hit him very hard. I mean, who knows if he actually lived up to that. I would believe it. He was very serious about it. And yeah, me and Jackson were kind of more similar on the way. It sounds horrible. Hopefully you won't be judged for this. But we're kind of like spitting jokes back on the way back. But
that's common.
Yeah, I think that was just the way that we kind of handled the stress of it all.
Yeah.
We talked about how he was just had puke like all up in his mouth, and
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a common thing. So people might not understand it. I think people that haven't been through something like that might not understand that, but
yeah,
kind of that dark humor, and like finding levity in general helps a lot, I think.
Yeah, because the atmosphere was just dark.
Yeah. It's definitely a dark feeling after that stuff. I feel like it's always just kind of like,
did you guys
a whole
feel
bunch of quiet, just mopiness going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just like, dude, we gotta get out of this zone, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and at that point, you did it
right
to a degree,
and
like
I think
you
that
got him out. You did your best. You got him in the helicopter with the people, and now he's gone. Like, everyone's gone.
It's as morbid as it sounds. It's not your problem anymore.
Yeah,
it's
basically
been handed off to the people, the people that are best suited to take care of them.
Exactly.
And also, there's the whole aspect. I always feel like it's easier to deal with something like that if you feel like you said, you did the best you could with what you had, and you were, heavily involved. Like if you were the guy that just, I don't want to speculate this is how it went, but if you're the guy who's barely involved and he's just sitting there like feeling helpless and not able to like really help out, it's going to weigh on that person harder because they didn't do anything. They just kind of sat there. And I've never been that person, but I can imagine that would suck worse than being the guy that actually got in there and got your hands dirty.
Yeah.
And got after it.
And yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's a big part of I think what made clearly, like I said, when we were doing CPR, there was a point where we were very discouraged.
Yeah.
But there was also another point to where it's like avalanche happened, boom, dad's up there, dad's working on first guy. We figure out immediately we need to turn this beacon off. It was off like within probably less than a minute, I would assume, like seconds.
Yeah.
Jackson immediately goes into beacon, goes the right way, beacon to the guy, thinks that that's it, pull down.
First try.
Hit him first try, immediately to shovels, passing back and forth. Found the guy, helmet off, no sign of life, immediate CPR. So it's just like this step by step. It was something that we could turn back and go, I mean, clearly, if I was maybe, there's always something you could have done better.
Right.
But to our level of experience and everything, it went, thankfully, really smooth.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So, yeah, to your point, we were just thankful that we never felt like, oh no, like what are we doing?
Like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You knew what to do.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And that kind of goes back to like the one task at a time thing.
Yeah.
It's like we're finding them.
And then also like you said at the beginning, the training that you got, beforehand, and you even had a little above and beyond since you were writing papers on avalanches, which is just crazy. It's like you guys were in a way like a godsend for.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously one of the guy passed away, but the other guy survived. And I would take those odds. Like if it's like you're talking about rescue situations, if you can save one of the two, that's pretty good odds in those situations. So
yeah.
You mentioned there's probably things you could have done better. And I envision you've thought about it a lot since it happened.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've thought of that, like, man, I wonder? I mean, I'm not saying what if it, but are there things that you think could have been done better that if it were to happen again next time you'd change, or would you keep it all the same?
Yeah, like there's definitely things I would change for sure. One of that being when I was climbing up the mountain with the sled, I was a little excited and I gunned it and I actually got my sled stuck.
Okay.
So Jackson made it to dad first. When looking at the totality of like the story, I don't think it affected anything. Just me and my other buddy had to like pack through the snow.
Yeah.
And at that point,
so you left the sled. Where was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forget it.
You didn't dig it out.
So
like, whoa.
The only reason I say that is I wish I kind of would have crossed up the snow better, because the only thing that it did hinder was it destroyed me and my buddy's endurance.
Interesting. Okay.
Because we weren't straight to it from sled to ground. We had to climb up this stupid avalanche, and it was only like 15 feet, but our feet are like breaking through.
Yeah.
Climbing up snow. It's sometimes the worst.
Wears you out.
Yeah. So we get to the first guy, and I'm already like kind of heavy breathing. And then they're like, we're getting to his beacon. So we helped get it to the beacon, and I'm just kind of like following suit, trying to catch up, me and my other buddy both. And then Jackson's right on it,
Yeah.
going to find the other guy. And that's when I'm like, holy smokes, there's two. And that's kind of the first time that I acknowledged that there's another person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all you saw was one sled, so you didn't know if there was two out there.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Did it click, or did it not? Was it kind of unimportant at the time mentally that those were the guys that you had met earlier, like when you found the first guy?
Yeah, it was unimportant.
So it was just like, there's another body, let's find it.
Yeah,
like there's another person.
Yeah, because the only reason, because we didn't see their face, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Because we showed up, their helmets on, and we're just kind of like chit chatting for just a few minutes.
How'd you figure out it was the same people? Because once you dug out the sled, you realized?
Because Dad talked to him. Remember when we came in the first time, we had conversation back with them.
Yeah.
And then he was the one that put it together.
Because he stayed with patient one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just kind of...
Oh, yeah. While you guys were digging.
Yeah, and... I'm hesitant to mention this, but I think it's important. I don't think it's a great idea to go sledding with alcohol. These two guys were.
Okay. No, I think it's worth mentioning. I see why you'd be hesitant, but
yeah,
that's the reality of it.
and I mean, no offense, but that's the reality of it. And they were, not of sound mind. So
Yeah.
There's a lot of. I'm actually glad you mentioned that because it's kind of part of that culture. I think there's a lot of people that go sledding or snow machining, snowmobiling, whatever you want to call it. They take the machines out and they bring drinks, and it's kind of like a good time or whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, not even to get into legalities really, but it's obviously illegal because you're operating a vehicle. But that's not even what I would want to get hung up on. It's just you're dealing with powerful machines in austere environments, and those two combinations. And I think that goes for anything. I think it goes for ATVs. I think it goes for side by sides, jet skis, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You hear stories all the time of guys that are inebriated and they're on jet skis and they get a little carried away, and then a strong slip tide carries them out to sea, and they just don't make it. They just die out there, and they get literally swept out into the ocean. And that's this situation. I mean, people all the time crash their sleds and hit a tree and die.
Yeah.
And then they find out later, they were inebriated. And I'm not saying that that's the reason that this happened. I'm not going to be the guy that says that, but
Yeah, but you also, even onto that case point as well, alcohol doesn't mix well with injuries, for one.
Not at
all. And
all.
it also doesn't mix well with the cold.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of reasons why you shouldn't be mixing those two activities together.
Yeah, I mean, even when you break,
obviously you can go into hypothermia a whole lot quicker with alcohol on board, and then injuries as well can be drastically, they can
compound.
Yeah, compound with alcohol in your system.
Yeah, not to mention, everyone knows when you're going on a snowmobile trip, you got a water bottle, and you should be frequently drinking it because it's so easy to become dehydrated out there. And when your only source of beverage is alcoholic, that's only going to speed up the process of...
It's actively dehydrating you.
Right.
Yeah. You're not being sustained at all by alcohol. You might feel pretty good, but might make you feel a little warm. It's all tricks. It's not real. So,
and also obviously adhere to the, when you're snowmobiling in the mountains, snowmobile in the tree line.
Did you, when the kind of going back to when the professional help showed up? So basically, you think the only thing you'd really change is that
you wouldn't get so trigger happy.
You'd try to more strategically climb up to them with the sled, basically.
Yeah, I followed Dad.
Yeah,
and Dad is clearly better, and in so many ways. And if you remember, right off the bat, Dad thought son was the victim.
Right.
So
he was hard charging Dad mode.
He's working on skill and I'm getting up this avalanche if it's going to kill me.
Yeah, Dad strength, dude.
Yeah. So I tried to follow suit Dad strength and failed. I should have.
Well, you had a passenger too.
Yeah. Which, all the excuses. But what I should have done if I could go back, I would travel up around on just the regular snow and come in sideways, similar to what son Jackson did when he came
flanking maneuver.
Yeah, when he came out of the tree line.
Cool.
And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw son or Jackson, I was relieved.
Yeah,
immensely.
Oh yeah.
It didn't really stop anything because it was still the reality was still the reality. But
if anything, I would argue that it probably made it easier because it's all right, we're doing this together.
Oh, dude, if it was, I'm telling you right now, if it was, hopefully it would have been the same, and I'm sure people have been through this, and my heart's out for them. If it was Jackson, it would have been extremely emotional.
Yeah.
that would have been way heightened. And I'm not saying that, a life is a life, and that was still extremely important, clearly. But I'm guessing there's way more emotion involved when you know the person.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that'd be the one thing that I would, if I could go back, I would just pop around.
So I would say your situation, thankfully, is one of those times, because you hear a lot, like you'll hear a lot of stories like this, and hopefully we have guests in the future that we'll have enough of these stories that, this will kind of be apparent. But a lot of times you hear like, man, I wish we had this, or we should have bought this. We thought about buying it, but it sounds like you guys had all the right equipment for this.
Yeah,
I would say the only thing, like from things I know, that could have made it better as far as equipment is just they got those beacons that can signal for a helicopter right then.
Yeah,
and
like
it runs off of in reach or they
Spot.
they literally have one. Yes, I don't know which ones. Like I had a buddy who got messed up on the mountainside, and his dad actually had one, and that was the way they ended up getting help, like almost immediately. So, like if you are doing these sports, I would highly suggest you run one of those, whether it's an inReach or a Spot or
because that would
whatever.
negate someone having to drive to cell service.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I think that if that adds to anything, that adds to making sure your equipment's updated.
Yeah,
because you can have the equipment, but there's new stuff coming out all the time. And our beacons were simply just a finding beacon. There was no.
Yeah. Well, and usually they're two separate pieces of equipment, aren't they?
What?
So you have your avalanche beacons, and then you'll have another device that's for like signaling help.
Yep.
Yeah. So it'd be a whole. Yeah. I don't know if they have any that are like two in one now.
They might, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
so what I was leading up to though is that maybe short of that piece of equipment, which I agree, Stephen, would be good to have. How much validation did that put on your perspective of like, if I'm going to go out and do this, these are things I just must have?
Oh my goodness, dude. Like I said before, thankfully he had one.
Yeah.
But it gives you a confidence in the equipment. Dude, that equipment's legit and it works. Like we practiced it. Like I remember, I should have mentioned this. Dad actually would go,
well, here's your chance.
Yeah, this is it. Here we are. Dad would bury a beacon in the yard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
dude, that's awesome.
And son,
I like this guy.
Jackson and me would go find it. Find beacon, unbury beacon. And then that was his way of, I guess, welcoming us into his...
well, he wanted to make sure you guys could find him. So he got buried.
Which I think, dude, all those... You want to call them... I even immediately went to a weird drill. But it's not a weird drill. It's legit. Like, especially Jackson, I'm sure has done that many more times than me. I was a part of one or two of them. But dude, he sprung right into action. And found this guy roughly 10 feet under first try.
So what you were saying by you went to weird drill thinking at the time, you're like, why are we doing that?
Well, it's just kind of like...
Okay.
I mean, it was sick. Like when you're doing it, you're like, that's pretty cool, It gets faster. It's like a little treasure hunt.
Yeah.
But then when it's in the moment, it's like the fun and games is over and this is real, but you have a sense of confidence because
you know
you've been
exactly
there
what to do.
Right.
We talk about this all the time.
You've used that exact piece of equipment too. That's another thing. Like it wasn't like a training, like, it wasn't a training that you went and took at the sports center. That was Jackson's dad saying, hey, this is literally the exact piece of equipment we're going to be running.
Yep.
Let's do it with this exact stuff.
Yep.
Where, some of the simulator trainer stuff's going to be like different. Like,
maybe
it's kind of close to the same, like how they're used, but there's slight differences as far as like buttons and like layouts and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to actually go out and test your equipment that you plan to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about it, or we mention it a lot on this podcast, but training for everything is so important because that was key, is that you guys weren't trying to figure that out for the first time in a life or death situation.
Right.
You knew what to do. So it becomes, it enables you to just do the action steps. You're not sitting there like, okay, hold on. So we got to turn this on and then, okay, is there any instructions? Like there's no that's all been taken care of.
Yep.
So you literally turn it on, start searching. You're doing the actual life-saving steps.
Yep.
You're not getting bogged down by how does this piece of equipment actually turn on and work.
Right. And another thing, drill your crew. Like Dad felt comfortable tending victim 1 because he knew his son was prepared.
He knew you guys knew how to find
he
him.
had confidence in
Yeah, he didn't have
riding
to.
with.
Yeah, he was, go to action. There was no, he didn't feel like he had to do everything.
Right.
Which, yeah, it gave everyone confidence. Everyone was moving. No one was talking, like in the sense of like, oh, what do you want me to do? There was none of that. It was like I was getting probe when Jackson was locking in the location, and other buddy was already working. I mean, he had shovel out and was carrying shovels. So he was tracking us with shovels behind, and it was just like one salt or one fluid
Like
motion
an assembly line of all the equipment.
Yeah,
I think that's incredibly important. Like with everyone, anything you do, any kind of activity, whether it's firearms industry, if it's some sort of action sport or whatever, you usually have a group of people you do things with. So just like it doesn't necessarily have to be like SOPs depending on what you're doing. I mean, in the firearms world, like if you're being like a getting like Minutemen like prepared or whatever, obviously you're going to build SOPs and whatnot for that, but like having just SOPs, like kind of standard operating procedures for how you're going to do things and how you want to go about doing it. And it sounds like Jackson's dad did a good job about like kind of getting everyone on the same page on how to go through that. Like the likelihood of that happening is pretty low, that you guys that you guys were going to experience like people getting buried in an avalanche, but yet you guys still trained for it and you guys were prepared to actually act when the time happened. So
yeah, and again, I'm really thankful for Dad. I mean, he squared us away. That's really what it comes down to. He gave us the call sign if something bad happens. He knew to bust a move. I mean, he came back before he even saw the avalanche. He didn't know what it was for. He just ripped in, and then I pointed over, and then obviously got us prepared with the equipment, and it went in. It happened.
Man, solid. So kind of in as we kind of close up here, going back to kind of the aftermath, because I think this stuff's always important to kind of understand. You got into it a little bit. You talked about how different people handle stress.
Right.
How was the days going into like weeks and maybe even like, now looking back on it, how has it affected you mentally dealing with, what is a life and death situation?
Right. Well, I'll say this: Dad, and son, Jackson, they did counseling.
Okay.
Dad asked me if I wanted to go. I said no. I said I was fine. Looking back, I might have done it. If I could go back, I would have done it. I remember talking with you, Jacob, after, and you shared some things from deployment directly after that incident, which was helpful, I think. But I think it took me, and that kind of goes into my relationship with the Lord grew over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think when that grew, the severity of the situation actually was elevated in my life. Like the reality of death hit harder. And I kind of had to work through that years later.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of compartmentalizing probably early on.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, it happened. It's a thing. And then as you grew in your faith and relationship with the Lord, it kind of opened your eyes to what that all meant.
Yeah.
Would you say that you've kind of, in a way, you've sought counseling through the Lord in this?
For sure. And people like from church.
Yeah.
And things like that. Being able to talk about the the situation. And it wasn't. I actually had a pastor who said, "Hey, I think that might be something that we should talk about, or like get someone to talk to you about, because when you mention it so fluidly, and I don't think you're actually processing like the severity of the situation." So, but like I said, everyone does handle it differently. I think the way that I handled it was
A very Barlow way.
yeah, it was very like, oh, that happened. Like,
Well, I'm
it's-
just saying.
yeah,
Our dad always says Barlow's handled death differently.
yeah, and I just moved on. But yeah, I would strongly encourage everyone, no matter where you're at, just to talk about it. Like, it happened, and it was serious. Like, the reality is, you unburied a dead body and worked on him for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I will go off of like what you were talking about. It sounded like Jackson, his dad, did the counseling and they offered it up to you. I don't know if they offered it up to your other friend as well to go. Did they offer it up to him? Or
I believe they did.
Did he go or no?
I can't remember.
Okay. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to what I'm going with.
Okay.
If you have the opportunity to do that, especially if it's in like the group that responded, like they do this in military and they do it with law enforcement with like big situations, they usually usually it's an AAR.
Yeah.
So like out in the prison where I work currently, week on, week off, they do this, if you have like a hanging or whatever, or someone, you have to do CPR. It doesn't matter. Something happens where they're like, hey, we're going to have this grouping. They give you the option if you want to go or not. And when I was offered that option, I also refused to go. I was like, no, I'm not going to go. That's weird. Well, the second time it happened to me out there, and we had to do CPR on someone, I went because of this reason. Just because you don't need it doesn't mean the other people don't need it that's there. So by you saying, I'm not going to go, maybe your friend's sitting there like, oh, if he's not going, I'm not going either.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also, you guys all get to talk about stuff usually there, and it brings up different views and things that someone might have not thought about, and it can potentially help your friends, and it can potentially help you, and you didn't know that you needed the help. So
Yeah.
I think if it's offered and you're in that situation, I think it's a good idea to go.
Yeah, and going back to the conversation with Jacob, I think there was a level of, oh, it's okay to be shook by this.
Yeah.
Because I think just naturally I assumed you're going to be like you're good. Like, you good? Sweet,
Yeah.
you're good.
Deal with it.
Yeah, but it wasn't like that at all. It was like you went into, obviously stories and details. And if I remember correctly, it was more on the emotional side.
Yeah.
Not like crazy, but I could just feel like a level of, oh, it's okay to be like affected by this. So I think that was also helpful. But saying that, that's why I wish that I would have gone. Because like you said, I think seeing the perspectives from other people and seeing how people go through it would have projected me quicker into like
a healthy understanding.
Yeah, a healthy understanding of processing.
Yeah. And I will echo what you said, David, about just talking about experience in general often is very good for you. Which you've done, you've talked about it pretty often.
Right.
I'm sure there's been, hopefully it's been relatively therapeutic to even talk about it again now. It's weird because it makes you remember, which can be hard, and it can be in some cases difficult to process, or maybe there's like, it makes you think about, makes you kind of critique yourself, at least for me. This is kind of from my experience, but it makes you think like, did I do something wrong? Or like, this is what happened, but should this have happened instead? Which I would say avoid that, because what happened is what happened,
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is value to taking a look at it and being like, okay, well, in a way, finding validation and like, well, this is what happened. This is what I did. And, even if you did make mistakes, like some people tell a story and they realize like, man, I think I made a mistake. It's like, that's okay. I mean, not everyone's perfect. Hindsight's 20/20. People can sit here and listen to a story and quarterback it all day, but you weren't there,
Right.
But I think the more you can talk about it, the better it is. It starts to I don't want to say normalize or desensitize, because that's not really the idea. It's just that was a pivotal and life-altering to some degree experience, and it happened. It's a thing, and it regardless of if people think it does or not, it can shape who you are and shape your life perspective.
Right.
So I think it's important to kind of lean into that and just be like, yeah, I mean, and I think most of the time you there's benefit in that. I think you can be better for it. I think people that have experienced a life and death situation like that, if they're good people, end up seeing a more precious value of life afterwards.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that is so important in just being a good, morally upright and upstanding individual. I mean, all three of us are Christians, and we believe in Jesus Christ. And that kind of shapes our morality and who we are. But I think even with that understanding, I think having that life and death experience just brings a whole new perspective on the importance and the value and the preciousness of life and how amazing it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's really good to talk about, and I think it's awesome that you're willing to share your story and share it so eloquently. I think that's good too. It means you've thought about it a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, and also just super cool to hear that you guys were able to do what you did. I mean, you hear about these stories a lot here. I mean, it happens a lot in Alaska, you know, probably every year, I would guess. Somebody at least gets hurt in an avalanche, but I think there's deaths annually.
I would say has to be.
And you hear about it a lot.
On the year, obviously, because certain years, you know, if you got the, you know, going warm to cold, like what you were talking about at the beginning, those are going to be years that are more prone for avalanches.
Right.
You know, if you have a more consistent year where it's like this year, well, it's starting to get warm again. So not really, but, you know, if you have one of those years that just kind of stays cold where it's supposed to be cold and it kind of warms up on either end, you know, it's going to be less likely.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I was getting at there is that, you know, it's amazing how many times you hear that, you know, I've heard stories from people like, man, I wish we had those beacons, you know,
Yep.
Or man, I wish I knew CPR or whatever. And it's cool that you guys not only went and got the training, trained with your equipment, had the equipment, understood your equipment very well, but also didn't hesitate and went into action. And that, I think, is directly attributed to the training, the seriousness you guys had in the training and being prepared. And, you know, lots of credit sounds like due to Jackson's dad.
Yeah.
For stepping into that leadership role, that more experienced, responsible role of being like, if you're going out with me, you're doing these things and you're knowing these things, you know?
Yep.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah. That really comes down to really the application of the whole podcast. It's like it even calls, and you mentioned, you know, what does it do for you when you repeat the story? I do like talking about the story because it reminds me to investigate my own life. What am I doing? And what is the potential, I guess, threats? And am I prepared? And I think even now, talking about it now, it's kind of calling me out in areas where I know that I would be unprepared. And I think that's for everybody. You know, be aware of what you're doing. And like what Steven mentioned earlier, you don't want to be the guy that looks back and goes, I was helpless in that situation.
No.
And
you'd regret it forever.
Oh, for sure. So I think, yeah, investigate your own life, what you're into, your hobbies, or just your situations where you are on a daily basis. And if there's a level of training that you need to take, you better take it. Because, I mean, hopefully, and we pray that you'll never have to use it.
Yeah.
But if you do, I've obviously been in the situation where I felt comfortable from the training that was given. And that was night and day.
Yeah.
Spot on. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap this thing up.
Sweet.
Big thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think it's really beneficial for people to hear it and understand it, especially if you live in here in Alaska. Just, I mean, it should be without saying now, but when you do any of this kind of stuff, like, you need to look into this kind of gear and invest in it. And if you need training, especially on the medical side of things, we do trainings. There's tons of people that do simple CPR stuff. We kind of go beyond that into basic pre-hospital stuff in general. Like, we get into a lot more than just CPR, but CPR is heavily covered in our courses. And but you don't have to come to us. There's a lot of people out there that do it. Training is everything. If you're one of those people that hasn't been in one of these situations that we talk about on the podcast often yet, good. That's a good thing. But that doesn't mean it can't happen to you. So you got to do your best to be prepared.
Yeah, and learn as much as you can from others. That's kind of the whole reason we're doing this. These podcasts, the after action reviews, just because you can learn from other people's things they did well and things they didn't do so well. So I think that's what's really important, but
cool. Well, good conversation, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.